The air was thick with tension. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of emotion, every bead of sweat. The debate stage, usually a place for polished rhetoric and rehearsed lines, had erupted into something far more raw, something that would shake the nation to its core. Karoline Leavitt, known for her fiery temper and sharp tongue, leaned forward with a sneer that cut through the room like a knife. Her eyes locked onto Kash Patel, a man whose calm demeanor had so far defied the chaos swirling around them. Then, with a voice dripping, in contempt, she spat out the words that would ignite a firestorm. "Go back to India." The room fell into a stunned silence. The words hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. Gasps echoed from the audience. Reporters froze mid-sentence. Even the moderators trained to maintain order were caught off guard. This wasn't just a political jab. It was a raw, unfiltered attack on identity, on belonging, on the very idea of what it means to be American. Across the country, millions watched in disbelief. Social media exploded instantly. Hashtags demanding accountability trended within minutes. The insult wasn't just a momentary lapse. It was a symbol of a deeper, more dangerous divide threatening to rip the nation apart. But Kash Patel, the target of this venom, did not flinch. His eyes remained steady, his voice calm but resolute. This was no ordinary debate. This was a battle for dignity, for respect, for the soul of a country grappling with its own identity crisis. The insult was a spark, but what happened next would become a defining moment, one that left the entire nation holding its breath, waiting to see how this story would unfold. Because in the face of such venom, the response would not just be a comeback. It would be a statement, a stand, a moment that would echo far beyond the walls of that debate stage. But what happened next left the entire country in disbelief. America was at a crossroads. The country's divisions had never felt sharper, the fault lines deeper and more dangerous. Identity politics had become a battlefield where every word, every gesture, carried the weight of history and the promise, or threat, of the future. In this charged atmosphere, the debate between Karoline Leavitt and Kash Patel was never going to be just another political showdown. It was a microcosm of a nation wrestling with its own identity, its values, and its soul. Kash Patel was no ordinary figure. Born to immigrant parents who had sacrificed everything for a better life, he embodied the American dream in its purest form. A decorated patriot, a public servant who had dedicated years to protecting the country from threats both foreign and domestic. Patel's story was one of resilience, honor, and unwavering commitment to justice. His calm demeanor and measured words had earned him respect across the political spectrum, but also made him a target for those who saw his very existence as a challenge to their narrow vision of America. On the other side stood Karoline Leavitt, rising star fueled by ambition and a fierce, often reckless desire to dominate the political stage. Her rhetoric was sharp, her attacks personal, and her willingness to weaponize identity politics made her a formidable opponent. But beneath the bravado lay a dangerous arrogance, a belief that power justified any means, including the use of divisive and hateful language. This wasn't just a clash between two politicians. It was a battle for the heart of America itself. For millions watching, Kash Patel represented the promise of inclusion, of a nation built on the strength of its diversity and the courage of its immigrants. Karoline Leavitt, with her incendiary words and divisive tactics, symbolized a darker vision, one rooted in exclusion, fear, and bigotry. The stakes couldn't have been higher. This moment was about more than a single insult. It was about whether America would live up to its founding ideals or succumb to the forces trying to tear it apart. The debate was a stage where history was being written in real time, where every word could tip the balance between hope and despair. As the nation watched, the tension was palpable. Social media buzzed with anticipation and outrage. Commentators speculated on the fallout. The question on everyone's mind was clear. How would Kash Patel respond to an attack that cut so deeply, not just at him, but at the very idea of who belongs in America? This confrontation was destined to redefine public discourse. It would force the country to confront uncomfortable truths about race, identity, and power, and it would reveal the true character of the man standing in the crosshairs. To understand the full weight of this clash, we must first meet the villain behind the words. Karoline Leavitt's rise in politics was as swift as it was relentless. From the very beginning, she was a force to be reckoned with, a young, ambitious woman who knew how to command attention and wield power with a sharp tongue and a sharper edge. But beneath the polished veneer of a rising star lay a temperament, fueled by arrogance and a hunger for dominance that often crossed the line into recklessness. Her political career began in the shadows of more seasoned players, but it didn't take long for her to carve out a niche as a firebrand. Leavitt's speeches were laced with fiery rhetoric designed to provoke, to rally a base hungry for confrontation. She mastered the art of the soundbite, the viral moment, the calculated insult that would ignite outrage and keep her name in the headlines. For her, politics was a battlefield, and every word was a weapon. But this hunger for power came at a cost. Leavitt's willingness to stoke division and exploit identity politics revealed a darker side, one that saw opponents not as fellow citizens but as enemies to be crushed. Her incendiary comments weren't accidental slips. They were strategic strikes aimed at deepening cultural divides and solidifying her standing among a faction that thrived on fear and exclusion. Her infamous "go back to India" remark was not an isolated incident but part of a pattern. Time and again, Leavitt had shown a readiness to use racial and ethnic slurs, dog whistles, and outright bigotry to silence dissent and rally her supporters. She reveled in the chaos she created, dismissing criticism as weakness or political correctness run amok. To her, the ends justified the means, no matter how corrosive the impact on the social fabric. This arrogance blinded her to the consequences of her words. She failed to see that in a nation built on diversity and inclusion, such divisiveness would only fuel resistance and backlash. Her tactics alienated not just her opponents, but many who might have been persuadable, turning a potential coalition into a fractured battlefield. Leavitt's rise was marked by a series of escalating confrontations, each more brazen than the last. She thrived on controversy, using it to propel herself forward, but with every attack she edged closer to a reckoning. The very fire she stoked threatened to consume her, as the public grew weary of the relentless negativity and the toxic atmosphere she helped create. Her story is a cautionary tale of ambition unchecked by empathy, of power pursued at the expense of humanity. She embodied the arrogance and bigotry that many feared were resurging in American politics. A villain, not just in this story, but in the broader narrative of a country struggling to define its future. But standing against her is a hero forged by sacrifice and resilience. Kash Patel's story begins far from the glare of political spotlights and fiery debates. It begins in a small immigrant household, where the values of hard work, sacrifice, and unwavering hope were passed down like precious heirlooms. Born to parents who left everything behind in search of a better life, Kash grew up with a deep understanding of what it meant to be an outsider, and the fierce determination to prove that belonging was not just a right, but a responsibility. From an early age, Kash was taught that America was more than a place. It was an idea. An idea that anyone, regardless of origin, could rise through merit, integrity, and service. His parents' sacrifices were etched into every lesson he learned, every challenge he faced. They worked long hours, often invisible to the world, so that Kash could pursue his dreams without limits. Their story was one of resilience, but also of hope, a hope that their son would carry forward the torch of justice and dignity. Kash's journey was not without hardship. He faced the subtle and overt challenges that come with being a first-generation immigrant in a country still grappling with its own identity. Yet, rather than breaking him, these obstacles forged a quiet strength. He learned to listen when others shouted, to remain calm when others raged, and to seek truth when others settled for convenient lies. His path led him to serve his country in the military, where his commitment to justice and protection of the innocent took on a new dimension. In uniform, Kash was more than a son of immigrants. He was a guardian of the very ideals that had welcomed his family. His service was marked by courage and humility, earning him respect from comrades and commanders alike. But it was not just the battlefield that shaped him. It was the discipline, the sacrifice, and the unyielding belief that every life mattered. After his military service, Kash transitioned into public service, dedicating himself to uncovering truth and holding power accountable. His work was meticulous, grounded in facts and fairness, a stark contrast to the noise and spectacle that often dominated political discourse. He became a voice of reason in a world too often drowned out by anger and division. What set Kash apart was not just his resume, but his character. In moments of crisis when others might lash out or retreat, he stood firm, calm, composed, and dignified. His strength was quiet but unshakable, a beacon for those who believed that respect and integrity were not weaknesses, but the greatest forms of power. This was the man who faced Karoline Leavitt's venomous insult on that fateful debate stage. His immigrant roots, his military service, and his unwavering dedication to truth had prepared him for this moment, not just to respond, but to rise above. He carried with him the hopes of millions who saw in him a reflection of their own struggles and dreams. Kash Patel was more than a politician. He was a symbol of resilience, a living testament to the promise of America. His story was one of triumph over adversity, of dignity in the face of hatred, and of hope that no insult, no matter how cruel, could ever extinguish. The stage was set for a showdown that would shake the nation. The debate had started with the usual political posturing, carefully crafted talking points, rehearsed smiles, and the polite nods of opponents sizing each other up. But as the minutes ticked by, the atmosphere shifted. What began as a contest of ideas quickly spiraled into a battlefield of raw emotions and unfiltered attacks. Karoline Leavitt's tone grew sharper, her words more cutting. Each sentence was laced with a venom that seemed to feed off the crowd's rising energy. She wasn't just debating anymore, she was hunting. Her eyes locked onto Kash Patel with a fierce intensity, as if daring him to falter. The crowd responded in kind, some cheering her on, others bristling at the growing hostility. Insults flew like daggers. Leavitt's voice rose, dripping with contempt as she questioned Patel's loyalty, his background, even his right to stand. On that stage, the room crackled with tension, the air thick with anticipation. Every word she uttered was designed to provoke, to unsettle, to break the calm that Patel had so carefully maintained. But Patel remained unmoved. His posture stayed steady, his gaze unwavering. Where Leavitt's aggression threatened to ignite chaos, Patel's calm presence acted as a counterbalance, a reminder that dignity could withstand even the harshest storm. He listened intently, absorbing the barrage without losing his composure. The contrast was stark. Leavitt's arrogance was on full display, her impatience, her disdain for decorum, her willingness to cross lines others wouldn't dare approach. She seemed to believe that sheer force of will and volume could drown out reason and respect. But Patel's quiet strength was a different kind of power. It was the power of restraint, of measured response, of confidence rooted in truth. The crowd's reactions mirrored this divide. Some were drawn to Leavitt's fiery rhetoric, swept up in the spectacle of confrontation. Others watched in growing admiration as Patel held his ground, refusing to be baited or broken. The tension mounted, the stakes rising with every exchange. As the debate reached its boiling point, Leavitt's attacks became more personal, more desperate. She tried to rattle Patel, to expose any crack in his armor. But with every attempt, she only revealed her own unraveling, her frustration, her loss of control, her inability to match Patel's unwavering calm. The moderators struggled to maintain order, their voices barely audible over the rising din. Cameras captured every moment, the clenched jaws, the narrowed eyes, the subtle shifts in body language. It was clear that this was no ordinary debate. This was a clash of wills, a test of character, a moment that would be remembered long after the cameras stopped rolling. And then, in a moment that stunned everyone, Patel delivered a response no one saw coming. The room held its breath. The air was electric with anticipation, every eye fixed on Kash Patel. After the storm of insults, the venomous attack that had silenced the crowd, the moment had arrived. Would he crumble? Would he lash out in anger? Or would he rise above it? All? Patel's face remained calm, his expression steady but resolute. He took a slow, deliberate breath, as if gathering not just words, but the weight of his entire life's journey. Then, with a voice clear and unwavering, he began, "Go back to India," he repeated, not as a retort, but as a mirror held up to the room. Those words are not just an insult. They are a rejection of everything America stands for. They deny the sacrifices of millions who came here seeking freedom, opportunity, and a chance to build a better life. A hush fell over the audience. The sting of the insult was still fresh, but now it was being transformed, reframed by Patel's dignity, into a powerful indictment of bigotry itself. "I am proud of my heritage," he continued, "because it is part of the rich tapestry that makes this country strong. My parents left behind everything to give me a future here. I served this nation in uniform, not just as a duty, but as a testament to my love for America. To suggest I don't belong is to suggest that the very ideals of this nation are negotiable." His words were measured, but each one landed like a hammer strike. The crowd shifted, some nodding in agreement, others caught off guard by the depth and clarity of his response. Patel paused, letting the silence stretch, a dramatic beat that amplified the gravity of his message. Then he leaned forward slightly, eyes locking with Leavitt's, calm but unyielding. "This isn't about politics. It's about respect. It's about recognizing that America's strength comes from its diversity, from the courage of those who have been told they don't belong, but who refuse to be silenced. It's about standing up to hate, not with hate but with truth." The room erupted, not in chaos but in a wave of applause and murmurs of approval. Cameras caught the flicker of doubt in Leavitt's eyes, the tightening of her jaw. The confident firebrand was faltering, her carefully constructed armor cracking under the weight of Patel's moral clarity. Social media exploded in real time. Clips of Patel's response spread like wildfire. Hashtags praising his courage trended within minutes. Celebrities, activists, and everyday Americans shared the moment, calling it a turning point in the conversation about race, identity, and belonging. Commentators scrambled to analyze the exchange. Some called it a masterclass in composure and rhetoric. Others hailed it as a defining moment of the election cycle, a reminder that dignity and truth could still triumph over division and hate. But beyond the applause and viral clips, Patel's words resonated on a deeper level. They spoke to millions who had felt marginalized, dismissed, or attacked simply for who they were. His response was not just a defense, it was an invitation to believe in a better America, one where respect and inclusion were not just ideals, but realities. Leavitt's silence in the aftermath was telling. The fire that had burned so fiercely was now reduced to embers. Her arrogance, once so palpable, was replaced by a guarded caution. The villain's moment of dominance had been shattered by a hero's quiet strength. As the debate moved on, the impact of that moment lingered. It was clear to everyone watching that this was more than a political exchange. It was a cultural reckoning, a moment when the nation was forced to confront its own contradictions and choose which path to follow. The mic drop was not just a phrase, it was a turning point, a moment when truth cut through the noise, when dignity silenced hate, and when a hero's voice echoed far beyond the walls of that debate stage. The aftermath was immediate and far-reaching. The moment Kash Patel's words echoed through the debate hall, the world outside erupted. Social media platforms ignited like wildfire, as millions tuned in, replayed, and shared the defining exchange. Within minutes, hashtags like #dignity over hate and Patel stands tall were trending nationwide, flooding timelines with messages of support, pride, and hope. Memes began to circulate, images of Patel standing calm and composed, juxtaposed with Leavitt's faltering expression, captions celebrating resilience and the power of truth. These weren't just jokes or fleeting internet moments. They were symbols of a larger movement, a collective refusal to accept bigotry disguised as political rhetoric. Celebrities and influencers from all corners of the country lent their voices to the chorus. Actors, musicians, and activists praised Patel's courage, calling his response a beacon of integrity in a time too often clouded by division. Their endorsements amplified the message, reaching audiences far beyond the usual political circles, turning Patel's stand into a cultural phenomenon. Political commentators scrambled to analyze the fallout. Pundits on both sides of the aisle acknowledged the significance of the moment. Some, conservative voices, usually quick to dismiss such incidents, found themselves forced to reckon with the undeniable impact of Patel's composure and moral clarity. Progressive outlets hailed it as a turning point, a reminder that respect and inclusion could still command the national stage. The conversation spilled into living rooms, workplaces, and classrooms. Families debated the meaning of patriotism and identity. Communities that had long felt marginalized saw in Patel's response a reflection of their own struggles and aspirations. The debate was no longer just about politics. It had become a nationwide dialogue about who belongs in America and what it truly means to be American. News cycles extended beyond the usual 24-hour churn. Opinion pieces, podcasts, and televised panels dissected every nuance of the exchange. Social scientists and historians weighed in, framing Patel's moment as part of a broader historical arc, one where the fight for dignity and equality continues to shape the nation's destiny. The ripple effect reached lawmakers and political leaders. Some issued statements condemning Leavitt's insult and praising Patel's response, signaling a rare moment of bipartisan acknowledgement. Others remained silent, their hesitation speaking volumes about the ongoing tensions within the political landscape. Amid the noise, grassroots organizations mobilized. They organized rallies, online campaigns, and community discussions inspired by Patel's stand. The incident became a catalyst for renewed activism, energizing those committed to combating hate and promoting unity. Yet, even as the digital storm raged, the impact was deeply personal for many. Stories poured in from individuals who had faced similar slurs, discrimination, or exclusion. Patel's response gave them a voice, a sense of validation, and a renewed belief that dignity could prevail. The nation was watching, listening, and reflecting. The shockwaves from that debate night were not just about a single insult or a single comeback. They were about the power of courage in the face of hatred, the strength found in calm conviction, and the enduring hope for a more inclusive America. But beyond the noise, a deeper lesson emerged. In the days that followed the storm, Kash Patel's words echoed far beyond the debate stage. What began as a personal attack had transformed into a powerful lesson for a nation grappling with its own identity. Patel didn't just respond to an insult. He reframed the entire conversation, reminding America of a truth too often forgotten. Dignity and service transcend race, origin, and background. He spoke not as a politician defending himself, but as a citizen embodying the highest ideals of the country he loves. Being American, he said, is not about where you come from. It's about what you stand for: justice, unity, and the courage to serve something greater than yourself. His message cut through the noise, reaching hearts and minds across the political spectrum. Patel's story became a beacon of hope, a testament to the strength found in resilience and respect. He showed that true patriotism is not measured by birthright or bloodline, but by the willingness to uphold the values that bind us all: freedom, equality, and the pursuit of a more perfect union. This moment was more than a victory for one man. It was a victory for every immigrant, every marginalized voice, every person who has ever been told they don't belong. It was a reminder that America's greatness lies in its diversity, in the countless stories woven together to create a tapestry stronger than any single thread. The lesson was clear. Hate and division may roar loudly, but they can never drown out the quiet power of dignity and truth. when we stand united in our shared humanity, when we honor the sacrifices of those who came before us and those who continue to fight for justice, we reaffirm the promise of this nation. Patel's response inspired a renewed commitment to these values. It challenged us to look beyond labels and stereotypes, to see each other not as enemies but as fellow Americans. It called on us to reject the politics of fear and exclusion, and instead embrace a future defined by empathy, respect, and hope. As the dust settled, the story of that debate night became a symbol, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, courage and integrity can light the way. It was a call to action, urging every one of us to stand up against bigotry, to speak out for justice, and to carry forward the legacy of those who believe in a better America. Because in the end, the true meaning of Americanness is not found in where we come from, but in how we choose to treat one another. It is in the dignity we afford each other, the service we give to our communities, and the unity we build across our differences. This is the story Kash Patel wrote that night, a story of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of truth. As this story closes, the call to action is clear. Karoline Leavitt's hateful words, "Go back to India," were meant to wound, to divide, to silence. But Kash Patel's response did something far greater. It united a nation around the values that truly define us. This wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a battle for the soul of America, and dignity won. We've witnessed a story of courage under fire, of resilience in the face of bigotry, and of truth rising above hate. Kash Patel showed us that no insult, no act of division can break the spirit of those who stand tall with integrity and grace. His example reminds us all that our strength lies not in tearing each other down, but in lifting each other up. If this story moved you, if it inspired you to believe in a better, more inclusive America, then don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your family, your community. Let's spread the message that hate has no place here, and that dignity, respect, and unity are the true American values. Subscribe now to join a growing movement of people who refuse to be silenced by division. Together we can build a future where every voice is heard, every story honored, and every person treated with the respect they deserve. The fight for justice and truth is ongoing, and it needs you. Stand with us, speak out, be part of the change. Because when we stand united, nothing can break us. Thank you for watching. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and stay proud.